Despite being only 21, there was a strange maturity in Rohan's eyes. One born from pain, regret, and something else: acceptance. In the military base above, Captain Yasmin walked briskly down the corridor, holding a thin file in her hand. Tall, confident, and clad in her camouflage uniform, Yasmin had joined the armed forces less than a year ago, but already commanded the respect of her superiors. She was known for her fierce sense of justice, unwavering discipline, and unmatched bravery. The daughter of immigrants, she had grown up in a tough neighborhood and had worked her way through the ranks with grit and determination. In her mind, crime was never to be tolerated, no matter who committed it. This case, however, felt different. She stopped in front of the holding cell and glanced at the name on the file: Rohan Malik, accused of murdering his own mother. The charge had shocked the military community, and the speed of the trial left little room for doubt. The military tribunal had sentenced him to death. Yasmin opened the cell door and stepped inside. Her boots made a soft thud against the concrete floor. Rohan slowly turned his head, meeting her gaze. His face was calm, almost too calm. "Rohan," she said, her voice firm but not unkind, "you have been given 2 more months before your sentence is carried out. As per military protocol, death row inmates are allowed to make one last request. If there is anything you want before the time comes, tell me now. We will see if it is possible." There was a pause. Then, to her surprise, Rohan smiled. It was not mocking nor filled with sorrow. It was serene. "My final wish?" he asked softly. "Yes," Yasmin replied, already bracing herself for something painful or emotional. Rohan looked her dead in the eye and said, "I want to spend each night until my execution with a virgin woman." The words hung in the air like a slap. Yasmin blinked, stunned. Did he just say that, she thought? She straightened up. "That is completely inappropriate," she said sharply. "You do understand that we cannot bring a woman here." Before she could finish, Rohan cut in with the same unnerving calm. "Then why don't you fulfill it?" Yasmin's jaw clenched. "Excuse me?" she asked, a trace of disbelief in her voice. "You asked what I wanted. I answered," Rohan said, his voice level. "You are a woman. You are not married. I assume you are also the one in charge. If it is truly about fulfilling my last wish, then what is stopping you?" Yasmin's face flushed, not with embarrassment, but with anger. She opened her mouth to lash out, but stopped herself. This was a convict, a soon-to-be executed murderer. Losing composure in front of him was not an option. She drew in a slow breath. "I am a military officer," she said coldly, "not someone who entertains the fantasies of criminals." "I see," Rohan said with a small nod. "Then I will wait. Maybe the system will have a change of heart." Yasmin glared at him, thinking of something else, something reasonable. But Rohan simply leaned back against the wall, the same faint smile on his lips. "I already have." Yasmin turned and walked out, her mind spinning. She dealt with thieves, traffickers, violent criminals. But something about this man, this request, unsettled her in a way she could not quite explain. As she closed the door behind her, she told herself she would not entertain his nonsense again. Yet that night, as she reviewed his file again in the quiet of her office, she found herself staring at his photo for just a little longer than usual. The next few days passed slowly, each hour dragging heavier than the last. Yasmin tried to keep her mind occupied with routine tasks, paperwork, patrols, and other cases. But something kept pulling her back to that one strange conversation with Rohan. His calmness, his disturbing wish, and most of all, the way he had looked at her. Not with lust, not even with defiance, but with something deeper, a challenge, almost philosophical. She had dealt with criminals who begged, cried, screamed, or threatened, but never one who smiled and made a wish that walked the line between absurd and impossible. Late one afternoon, a woman burst into the military base's administration building, crying. Yasmin was at her desk going through theft reports when she heard the commotion. The woman was in her 40s, clutching her torn handbag, eyes red from panic. "Captain, someone broke into my quarters," she said. "Everything is gone, my jewelry, my savings, even my late husband's watch." Yasmin stood up instantly and calmed the woman. "Do not worry, ma'am, we will help. Just tell me your quarters location and anything suspicious you noticed." After briefing 2 military police officers and sending them to investigate, Yasmin decided to wait at the base. Only she and Rohan were inside the detention area. The other staff had left for the field. The sky outside turned amber as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the tiled floor. Yasmin, restless, walked down the hall toward Rohan's cell. Maybe it was boredom or curiosity or something unexplainable that drew her back there. He was sitting in the same position as before, back against the wall, legs folded. He looked up and smirked when she approached. "I was beginning to wonder if you would come back," he said. "I did not come for your amusement," Yasmin snapped. "I came to ask, do you feel nothing? You were sentenced to death for murdering your own mother, and yet here you sit smiling as if it is all a game." Rohan's eyes darkened slightly, the smile fading just a little. "Did you ever think," he said slowly, "that maybe I did not do what they said I did?" Yasmin frowned. "The evidence is clear. Your mother was found on the floor bleeding. You were standing there with a bloodied stick. You did not even defend yourself during the trial." "I was in shock," Rohan replied, his voice softer now. "My mother, she was everything to me. I heard her scream and rushed to her. Someone had already hit her. I grabbed a stick from outside to defend her, but by the time I got inside, it was too late." Yasmin did not respond immediately. Something in his voice felt real, too real. But she had learned long ago not to be swayed by emotion. "Then why did you not speak up in court during questioning?" "I froze," he said. "I thought it was over. And maybe I did not care if it was." Silence fell between them for a moment. Yasmin was not an officer and Rohan was not a convict. They were just two people in a room, both trapped in their own ways. Her phone buzzed, a message from the patrol unit. The robbery at the woman's quarters had been staged. Her own son had stolen the money from the cupboard and spent it on gambling. The case was closed, no arrest necessary. Captain Yasmin side-pocketed the phone and looked back at Rohan. "The world's full of lies, isn't it?" she muttered. Rohan smiled faintly. "Now you're starting to understand." Later that evening, an official letter arrived at Yasmin's desk. It was from the regional warden's office. It stated that if Rohan had a final wish, and if that wish could be fulfilled within the legal and moral framework, the department should do its best to accommodate it. She stared at the paper, her heartbeat quickening. The next morning, she brought a cup of tea to Rohan's cell, something she had never done for a prisoner before. He looked at the cup, then at her. "You're being kind," he said. "That's dangerous in a place like this," she replied. "You still have 2 months." "This doesn't mean anything," he said. He took the cup, sipped slowly, then looked her in the eyes. "The wish I told you about, it's still the same." Yasmin didn't speak. She stood there, motionless. "You know," he added, "I've seen so many people come and go. Guards, officers, priests. But when you came in that first day, something changed. You didn't look at me like I was a monster. You looked at me like I was a man." She looked down at her boots, heart thudding. "That doesn't mean I agree with you." "No," Rohan said, standing up slowly, "because you didn't walk away either." Yasmin turned and walked out quickly, her footsteps echoing louder than before. She couldn't understand what was happening. This wasn't right. She was a military officer. She wasn't supposed to feel anything for a death row convict. She wasn't supposed to return his gaze. But that night, alone in her apartment, she kept seeing his face, that strange calmness, that broken honesty, and somewhere deep inside, something she didn't want to name was beginning to stir. The rain tapped gently against the window panes of the military base that night, soft and rhythmic, like a heartbeat in the dark. A storm was forming over the city, one that mirrored the one building inside Yasmin. For days, she had fought the turmoil within her, the growing empathy, the confusion, the emotional pull she never expected to feel for someone like Rohan, a convict, a man sentenced to die. But he wasn't like the others. There was something disturbingly honest about him, something vulnerable, raw, human. And that dangerous humanity was beginning to crack Yasmin's armor. The armor she'd spent years building as a woman in the armed forces, a woman in a world that demanded she be unshakable. That evening, she stood in front of the mirror in the locker room, out of uniform for the first time in days. Her long, dark hair fell freely across her shoulders. She wore a simple sari, elegant, traditional, and modest, but it felt unfamiliar. The military badge wasn't clipped to her belt. The duty pistol was locked away. She wasn't Captain Yasmin tonight. She was just a woman. As the clock struck midnight, Yasmin quietly unlocked the hallway gate leading to the detention block. No one was there. The others were either asleep or out on night patrols. The base was deserted, and the only sounds were the storm rumbling in the distance and the soft click of her sandals on the tile. She reached Rohan's cell. He was awake. When he saw her dressed in the soft cream sari with gold trim, his eyes widened in disbelief. Not because of lust or desire, but something closer to awe. "You came," he whispered. Yasmin didn't respond. She simply unlocked the door and stepped inside. For a moment, they stood in silence, just looking at each other. There were no handcuffs, no rules, no uniforms, just two people standing in a moment that shouldn't have existed. "You asked for your final wish," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm here to give you that, but not as your warden. Only as Yasmin." Rohan nodded, emotion flickering in his eyes. "I never expected you to actually come." "I didn't either," she admitted. That night, within the stone walls of a military prison meant for the condemned, something happened that defied protocol, logic, and everything Yasmin believed about justice and duty. They held each other in silence, speaking through touch, through warmth, through the quiet desperation of two souls who had found something real in a place meant for endings. Afterward, they sat on the floor together, their backs against the wall, staring at the tiny barred window where moonlight was trying to cut through the clouds. "I've never seen anyone do something like this," Rohan said quietly. "I meant what I said before. You don't look at me like I'm a monster." Yasmin looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Because I don't think you are." He turned to her. "Then why did no one else believe me?" "Maybe because no one else took the time to listen." And so she did. For the next 2 hours, Yasmin listened as Rohan poured his truth into the silence. The story of that night, how he had returned home to find his mother screaming, a man fleeing out the back door, and blood pooling around her frail body. How he had chased after the man but returned too late. How he picked up the stick lying nearby, confused and panicked. And when the villagers saw him, they saw only a boy with a weapon and a bleeding woman on the floor. He had tried to explain during the first interrogation, but the panic silenced him. The system moved too fast. No lawyer truly cared. His fate had been decided before his voice could reach the surface. Yasmin's throat tightened. For the first time in her career, she felt shame, not because she had crossed a line, but because the line was drawn in the wrong place. The next morning, Yasmin went to her superior officer and demanded a reinvestigation. She filed a motion, argued in front of a military judge, and submitted her own report. Her colleagues whispered, her seniors raised eyebrows, but she didn't stop. She had stared into the eyes of a man she knew was telling the truth. Weeks passed. An inquiry reopened. Witnesses were requested, forensic reports were reanalyzed. Then a breakthrough. Fingerprints from the stick didn't match Rohan's. They matched a known criminal who had disappeared the night of the murder. The case unraveled. The real killer was found, arrested, and confessed. Rohan was declared innocent. The military tribunal vacated his sentence. He was free. And as the sun set on the day he walked out of the courthouse, a free man for the first time in a year, Yasmin waited outside in plain clothes, no badge, no uniform, just a smile. He walked toward her slowly, still unsure if it was all real. "I don't even know what to say," he murmured. "Then don't," she said, stepping forward and taking his hand. "Just live." 3 months later, in a quiet ceremony attended only by close friends and colleagues, Yasmin and Rohan were married. She was 3 years older than him, but they didn't care. He was once condemned to die. She was once afraid to feel. Now they were both free from the past, from fear, from fate. Married life had brought a strange kind of peace for both Yasmin and Rohan. Not the kind filled with grand romance or picture-perfect moments, but something deeper. A quiet companionship, an understanding that neither of them had known before. They had each survived something tragic and brutal, and now in their modest 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city, they were finally learning how to breathe again. Rohan had started working part-time at a legal aid center where he helped other former convicts navigate life after prison. Yasmin, though still in the military, had requested a shift to internal affairs, away from arrests and street crime, away from the places that still echoed with her memories of Rohan behind bars. On weekends, they cooked together. They argued over little things like what to eat or whose turn it was to do the dishes, but those were the small, ordinary moments that made life feel real again. This version maintains the emotional depth and narrative flow while adapting the story to a military setting with a female military officer in a military detention facility. All numbers and dates have been spelled out as requested. And then came the letter. It arrived on a Tuesday, no name, no return address, just a plain envelope slipped under their door. Yasmin picked it up absent-mindedly as she returned from her morning jog. She opened it, expecting a bill or some promotional flyer. But what she read instead made her freeze in place. "You freed a murderer. I wasn't finished with him yet." The paper slipped from her hand and fluttered to the floor. She picked it up again and scanned every inch. No fingerprints, no handwriting, just those typed words, centered and bold. Yasmin's mind went into immediate tactical mode. Had someone followed her? Followed Rohan? Was this a prank, a threat, or something worse? Could it be the man who truly killed Rohan's mother? Someone they thought had already been caught? She debated whether to tell Rohan when he walked in later that day, smiling with a bag of groceries in hand. She forced a smile back, but it didn't reach her eyes. That night, as they ate dinner, Rohan noticed her silence. "What's going on?" he asked gently. She hesitated for a moment, then slid the envelope across the table. He read it once, then again. His hand trembled slightly. "You think it's him?" Rohan whispered. "I don't know," she said, "but I'm not taking any chances." Over the next week, Yasmin quietly reopened files. She contacted the district forensic team, requested sealed reports from the military prison system, and even visited the man who had been arrested for Rohan's mother's murder, a wiry, hollow-eyed drifter named Kama Ellis. He had confessed, yes, but something about the way he spoke now was different. It was as if he no longer remembered why people told him he did it. "I did it," he mumbled, his eyes distant. "Maybe I did, maybe I didn't." Things get blurry when you're high for that long. A cold feeling settled in Yasmin's chest. What if the wrong man had been convicted again? What if Rohan's release hadn't been the end of the story, but only the beginning of something far more twisted? That night, as the storm rolled in and the lights flickered in their apartment, Yasmin sat awake, staring at the letter again. The words seemed to whisper off the page. "I wasn't finished with him yet." She got up quietly and locked every window, every door. She checked Rohan's breathing as he slept, calm, peaceful. But deep inside, Yasmin knew something was coming. And this time she would have to protect not just the truth, but love itself. If you want part 2 of this story, let me know in the comments. A strange bond between a military officer and a death row inmate, a story of truth, emotions, and unexpected choices. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for more.